Maybe you don't have a burnout problem. Maybe you've got a self-trust problem. Maybe you already know what you actually want, but you don't trust yourself enough to choose it. Today's guest is Jasmyn Quianna, who's going to talk about not settling for less and loving yourself into the life of your dreams. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a new understanding of ourselves and what we're doing here, floating around in the middle of stars on this blue dot. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. And I love having these conversations week after week. Been doing this for about 10 years weekly and welcoming you to the show if you are new. We'd love to have you join us for conversations on a range of topics, but usually we go deep. So if you like to go deep, this is the place for you. And today, really, I feel like I'm going back to the beginning of my journey where I decided I didn't want to settle. No more settling. You know, it's like I had an okay marriage. It was good. We had fun. From the outside world, it looked like we were like the cat's meow. Everyone was like, oh, they're the best marriage. They have the best marriage. They have the best marriage on the outside. That's what it looked like. And on the inside, there was a lot of sacrificing going on. I was compromising myself. I was not really being true to myself. And I was feeling very criticized. Now, whether that criticism was coming from inside my mind, probably. But it was also being echoed on the outside. And I was feeling like I didn't really know how to make these dreams come true that I had. And it didn't seem like it was working, and definitely not in the time frame that I needed it to work in. And I was starting to feel like I am either extremely entitled. I was being honest, very entitled, also very insecure, also very much wanting my life to be rich and full of all the things that I loved, and not just doing stuff because I had to do it, and not just doing a career because it made good money, but also like living an enriching life, something with depth and meaning. And I kind of grew up with parents that valued depth and meaning and deep conversations and esoteric philosophical conversations, and just really didn't have a lot of that going on in the way that I wanted it. And I would not let myself enter spaces where that would have been happening, which is the other thing I was doing, was blocking myself from that. So I was kind of living the picture perfect life, but not really fulfilled on the inside, and suppressing myself, and trying to make it work. And eventually, of course, that all exploded in quite the tornado that is described in my first book, Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love, in which I decided no more settling. Not going to settle anymore. I'm going to go after the life of my dreams, and I'm just going to do it, even if it sounds crazy. And everyone around me was telling me, you're crazy. That's a perfectly good marriage. And I'm sure it was. And there was something calling me forward. There was something calling me into a whole new existence. And so I had to honor that. If you're resonating with this conversation, if you're standing in a moment like that right now, this is the perfect conversation for you. So welcome to the show. We have Jasmyn Quianna with us. Welcome, Jasmyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for having me.
Yeah, I just love this. Jasmyn is the author of Falling Madly in Self-Love and founder of the Absolute Self-Love Movement, a former oncology clinical research leader. Sounds like very successful, you guys, right? Like, oncology clinical research leader. She now helps high-achieving women who feel stuck and burned out realize that they don't have a burnout problem. They have a self-trust problem. They already know what they want, but don't trust themselves enough to choose it. And so through her work, she helps them to stop overthinking it, second guessing it, finally act on what they know is right so they can build a life that actually feels as good as it looks. And so, yeah, I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. Like I said, I have been on this road doing all the things picture perfect on the outside, right? But then showing up like, why is this not fulfilling me?
Right.
Age old story. So tell us about your journey. How did you finally realize what you were doing to yourself?
So it's funny when you were sharing your side of it, it's so similar. Of course, some details are different, but overall, it's the same thing. It looks good on the outside. We took all the steps to get there. We built what we thought was success or what we were told it was, anyways. And then we get there, and then it's like something else is calling you for something more. And it's challenging at first, especially for me, because of how I was raised, Southern Baptist, Christian Baptist, pretty strict background, conservative, traditional family environment, things like that. And so you follow the traditional path of what the dream, the American dream is supposed to look like, going to college, going to school, checking all the boxes. Even though neither one of my parents have graduated from college or anything like that, it's like that's what they were told. So then they're telling it to their kids. And I did all the things to the T. I follow what they tell you to follow and got the multiple degrees and climbed the corporate ladder and did all the things. And I felt miserable once I got there. And so things started to fall apart. I say fall apart, but hindsight, I could see how there were so many flags that were raised long before I got to the crumbling phase. I just kept ignoring them. But if I'm honest with myself, my soul had been yelling at me for years. I just ignored it. Probably from the time, well, even going into college, I knew that I was supposed to do something with healing people and something along those lines. I always, even as a kid, I don't even have any memory of this, but apparently I wrote this little book when I was a kid and I put in about the author section as a kid. I was 9 or 10, I think I said. Basically, I said that I wanted to be a brain and a heart surgeon. So it's like I knew in my heart that this was something that I was supposed to be doing all along. So I went like the traditional medical path. I thought I was going to be a doctor first, then moved over to scientist, then moved over to clinical research space. And like you said, the cancer trials, because I just knew I was supposed to do something with healing. But I guess because I was raised, the environment I was in, I had no words or context to articulate that I was going to be an energy healer and a light worker. That was not even a possibility. Right.
Not even a thing, right? In that world.
Not even a thing, not even an option. So I had no idea that that's where that crazy journey and path was taking me, but that's where I'm at now. That, like you mentioned, I wrote this book and that kind of like was the catalyst to put me on the path to say, it's bigger than just writing this book and being an author and coaching people. It's like literally a whole movement and you're a light worker and an energy healer and all these things that I just would have probably even maybe just a few years ago thought was crazy and definitely not for me. And I had gone to different types of energy healers. I would say probably the first one I think was like in 2022, 2023. And they told me that I was a healer. One said I had past life with a shaman. One said I had a long ancestral line of healing. And I just thought it was crazy. And I just went to different ones. Like, oh, that one didn't know. She didn't know what she was talking about. And, I got to find the one that knows what they're talking about, right? But no, this was it. And so it was a lot of push and pull, resisting because I'm coming from the science world, this traditional background. And here I am being called to write this book on self-love when I'm just trying not to hate myself in my life. And then on top of that, energy healing, it just felt so wrong to follow this path and say yes to it. At the same time, when I say it felt so wrong on the outside, externally, what I knew and what I was taught, but yet on the inside, from a heart and a gut feeling, it felt like home, if that makes sense. And so because my soul had gotten so burned out and so tired and fed up with the other way, and I had literally started to break down physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I said, well, what do I have to lose at that point? Like my soul was screaming. So I went all in. I wrote the book and I did the thing and now we're here.
It's kind of like the choiceless choice, when you finally get to that
right
rock bottom space where I don't even want to be here anymore. This is not fun. This is not what I signed up for. And how do you even know what you signed up for? There's just some part of you deep inside that just knows this is not what I signed up for, is in this office under these fluorescent lights, going to these
right
meetings that are super stressful. And for something that I don't entirely believe in, does it help? Maybe. But do I care? No, I'm not really lit up. I'm doing it for the money, right? I was in high tax and I was actually, ironically, working for this company that was creating surveillance software and is probably the same software being used on the backbone for a lot of this stuff going on and this big brother stuff happening. It's so interesting. I was documenting it at the developer level. And anyway, I think there's a purpose to all that. I feel like we have those experiences because we are collecting information that later will become super helpful. Like I know I was a technical writer. I was looking at code. So I was translating deep programmer speak into like app developer speak so that they could understand how to work with this stuff. And then I was working with translating app developer stuff into like end user like words.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
doing a lot of like full spectrum documentation, like how do you explain all of this stuff to the next level of abstraction that doesn't understand the nitty gritty details and the foundation. So in some ways, I was training myself, right, to track things and to understand things, to help myself
Right.
understand things, and then to explain it and translate it to other people, which I think is a lot of what I do right now because I'm just looking at different code. I'm looking at human
Right.
genome code, spiritual code,
Right.
ancestral code. I'm looking at just very different code, but it's still code. Then translating and parsing, like, okay, what pieces of this code need to actually change in order for this person to awaken to themselves, like to their next level. So, like, what did you think that you got from that experience that you would then translate into what you're doing today?
It's so funny that you put it that way, and I love it because you're right. That is essentially what you're doing, right? It's still code. It's just on the DNA, the energetic level. And so for me, I guess you could say, like, I literally went on this journey of going from self-hate. And at the time, definitely did not realize that it was self-hate. That's not what I called it. It was all these other things like, I just need to get my shit together, or I'm just going through a phase, or I'm just crazy, or all these other things I would call myself or say it was or explain it away. And I even dislike, I would say, I just don't like myself, or I don't like what's happening now, or I would try to say, use those types of terms to kind of lighten it. But it was definitely a walk of going from this self hate space to where I am now. And I can see now very clearly how it was necessary, really, to even be in the space to be able to write this type of book and articulate this type of self love towards yourself, and for this information to even flow through me, because it definitely wasn't something that I sat down and said, hey, I'm going to write this book on self love, and here are these 12 pillars. That definitely was not the case at all. It definitely, I chose it, but it chose me. We chose together that this is going to be the vessel, that this information is going to flow through. And so, because of that soul choice level, I was then taken on a journey to now be able to essentially articulate all the different phases that you're most likely to occur as you walk this journey, falling in love with yourself and really knowing the truth of who and what you are. We all are on an individual level, and how it fits into the bigger humanity puzzle, the whole human collective conscious perspective. And it's really been amazing because going from like what I know, with the pre-med bio classes, for example, the pharmacology classes, going through all the drug classes and learning the human body and all the things and seeing the trials, like literally each path, each role, each job, all of it has given me a different perspective of how traditional medicine, anyways, on this side of the world, how we treat healing and how we treat disease and wounds and things that need to be healed, restored, addressed. And in some ways, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So I'm not trying to like say it's evil or any of those things. Everything has its place and its purpose, right? But in terms of, does those types of things really truly heal you and restore you? I haven't seen it. Definitely great tools to help you along the path sometimes if you're guided to use them. So it's just giving me a different perspective of the roles all these different things play and how they have contributed, at least for me, and the people that I've seen, that I've worked with, have contributed to how we got here in the first place. And not that it's a bad thing or wrong thing, but how it put us here. I've gone through being diagnosed with depression and anxiety, for example, and being put on all of those drugs. And literally, you name it, I've probably tried it and done it. And none of those things worked. They got me into an even worse place. And at the time, I was always wondering, like, why am I going through all this crap? I've been involuntarily committed and I've gotten a DUI and I've gone through addictive phases. And it's like, why am I going through all of these things? And now I can see how every part and component of it was so that I could now be in this space to have these types of conversations and be able to hold space for people who are going through it and feel like, there's no end, they're alone, and then they're hopeless.
Yeah, it's really important to have people that have lived and walked it, who have walked the path. It's a lot to go through those deep dive experiences where, yeah, like it's extreme. When you get down to the bottom of that gaping hole inside, it's self-hate. That's what it is. And where did it come from? I don't know. I mean, did it really come from you, or did it come from ancestry? Did it come from the environment? Did it come from living in a patriarchal system that's also white supremacist? There's like a lot of reasons, like all the ancestral stuff that's in the land that has not been healed yet, that is still actively operating, spirits that didn't cross over, that are causing mischief. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, as to why someone would be feeling some self-hate. And I definitely think some of those drugs, I feel like they're trying to help. And I think people involved in those pharmaceutical industries, I had a couple of clients who were high up in those kind of industries, and they really feel like they're helping people. Like that's their whole thing, is like they're making a revolutionary impact, and supporting people through these diseases and all these kinds of things. But is it all bad? No. But is it all the solution? No. Because if we actually stopped and looked more deeply under the surface of the symptoms, we would start finding the roots of why it is that thing's there in the first place. Exactly. And the roots of why it's there in the first place could be 7 generations ago. Like it might not even be right now.
Exactly. So, yeah. And no pill is going to hit 7 generations ago, right?
No, it's just going to make you feel better for a little while or help you cope. But we're talking about not settling. So like when you decide I'm done with coping isn't working for me. I mean, coping for me looked like taking those not feeling pills for the depression and the anxiety and the diagnosis and all that. And then basically drinking some wine, like a whole bottle of wine doesn't really touch it. So I got to crack bottle number 2, smoking some pot.
That was me.
I mean, that's coping. And I don't want to diss anybody who's doing that right now, because I totally get it that feels like this is the only thing that gets me through right now. So don't take it away. Like I need this. But both of those things, in retrospect, they open your energy field up with giant gaping holes that then like any sort of compatible entity energy that's hanging out in the field that likes self-abandonment, likes the energy of self-disgust, likes the energy of self-hate, likes the energy of whatever thing is going, addiction, it just taps in and with a little straw and just starts siphoning off your life force energy. I mean, that's the danger of those substances.
Absolutely. And you saying that, hindsight again is 2020, but I can see how when I was in that space, in those phases in my life, how you feel like you get stuck in this cycle and this pattern. I used to call it the dark hole. Because like you said, now it's not just you overcoming the stuff that you've created, but you literally do have these entities or what have you that you allow to come in. And then now it's like this extra burden, so to speak, that now has to be addressed as well. So just taking a pill or trying to forget about it or whatever you're doing is only making it worse. And I learned that definitely the hard way.
I think that's the only way to learn that lesson. It's like you kind of have to go along for a little while, gaslighting yourself that this is working until you realize it's not. And because you're getting worse and your desire to live is diminished and you really don't want to be here anymore. And that's when you really have to make big life changes. And I mean, the big life changes I'm talking about is like, you might have to leave that relationship that you've been hoping you could fix. You might need to leave the whole career that you spent your whole education preparing for because it's not what you really want to do. You might have to make big changes that look like failure in order to start finding yourself again. And then when you start to find yourself again, and especially through like shamanic healing or through energy healing, like you're talking about, what happens is that gaping hole of hunger inside of you that can never be filled, it starts to be filled because your soul starts to come online and say, finally, you're listening to me and you're following along with what I'm saying. And then you start working with your soul. And now the more you reclaim your soul, the more you're sovereign. And the more sovereign you are, the more your energy elevates. And the more your energy elevates, you kind of elevate yourself right out of alignment with those darker energy entities.
Right.
So like you've got to lift yourself to get away from them, so to speak, you know. There's no other way but the inner work. That's literally the only way to change.
That's it. That's literally it. You have to shine the light on the dark. That's the only way. I remember at one point, I guess I felt like I had given up because I just felt like it was too hard to climb out the hole. Going back to our topic of settling. And so it was a space where I just felt like I wanted to settle. And I can truly feel for people who get in a space and they have absolutely no hope, because that's really, I feel like, at least from what I've seen so far, like that one determining factor between the people who really just say F it and they're done versus the people who didn't quite get there. It's like that little last bit of hope. And so my soul, I felt like it was still hanging on to that little basket, and it would just not let me quit, not let me give up. So that's when I felt like, okay, I have to do something different. And it was multiple things that I needed to address because I hadn't listened to my soul. So that meant leaving the marriage. That meant making a career pivot and ending the old, not only just career, but the old career coaching business, and pivoting my brand and getting rid of some friends. It meant a list of things. And that's scary. And it is tiring, a little bit exhausting, because it's like, okay, now you realize you have to take different actions and steps, and all the things come up and you feel like your world is falling apart and you might, want to just go back to the old. It's not even worth it to change, right? But I can say now that I'm like, even in the messy middle, I can say that it's definitely all been worth it, because settling and staying in that space is, I call it the Walking Dead. It's like being alive, but not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I felt like. When I was in that part, like before I started shifting, well, first of all, if you deny yourself long enough of what you truly want and you use all these coping mechanisms, like I was using like wine and pot or whatever I was using, sex, you'll actually start to go actually literally crazy. And you'll start doing things that you wouldn't have ever thought that you would have done before. And you'll really stray from your center line of integrity, and you'll act out because not only you've just had it, with yourself, but also those not feeling pills help you not feel the impact of what you're doing on yourself and on others. So you can really act out in horrendous ways when you're in that phase. And if that's you right now, just own it, because owning it is the only way to transform it. You've got to own, like, hey, I'm doing some stuff that's not okay with me right now. When I was in that place, Jasmyn, I couldn't even see out my own eyes. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like I felt like I was way down in some cave inside of myself, trying to like climb up to the little portals of light that are my eyes. And I literally couldn't get up to see out of my own eyes.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling.
And I couldn't open my eyes. After I left my husband, I was dating a bunch of guys, and I liked this one in particular. And he's like, do you know that you can't even open your eyes? Can you open your eyes more than a slit? I couldn't open my eyes more than a slit. I was like, no, I can't. And I was like this, I can't open them. Like I literally couldn't open my eyes. I kept trying.
Wow.
I was so filled up with entities, I literally couldn't open my eyes. And so now when I see people, when their face is like that, like there's a few politicians I've looked at in Texas here where I'm like, oh yeah, that person's filled up with entities. Cause like when they started their career, their eyes were fine. And now they're like, they can't even open, they're like walking around like this. And it's because the entities don't like light. And so you literally can't open your eyes. You're walking around and you can't see out of your own eyes because you're like barely there. And the only way is you've got to find a spiritual path. Like you've got to find a spiritual path back to yourself. I'm not saying religious because I don't think it's that. I think it's more a direct communion with Creator, God Source, Great Mother, I don't care. Energy, essence, whatever
Yeah.
word you want to put on it, right? You got to find a direct connection to your soul and to that which is bigger than you in order to heal this thing.
Right. Absolutely. And it's so crazy because the journey of falling in love with yourself is, I didn't realize it at the time, but it is a spiritual journey. And I never set out to write a spiritual book or talk about self love or do any of these things. Like I said, it sounds crazy, but I didn't. It literally chose me and I kind of just let it. Thankfully, my first writing coach didn't work out. And then I got my second writing coach, and that's when I really opened up to just let it flow through me versus like trying to be what the industry says how you're supposed to write and the outline and all the this and then that. I just let it all go and let it flow through me in the way that it wanted, in the order that it wanted to. And all of this just came out. And at the end, looking back, I realized that it was a spiritual journey and it was this spiritual path of coming back home to yourself really does not only connect you to you, of course, but God. It can't source, creator. It can't be any other way because that is who and what we are at our core, right? That's our essence. It's, inside us, around us, all throughout us. It's all that is. So it's like, how can you have one without the other? And it's like this crazy way that it all worked by me just simply reconnecting to myself. And then once that happened, it was like, I just could no longer settle. It's just impossible for you to settle when you are so connected in deep connection and relationship with self, because by default, you're in deep connection and relationship with God, source, creator, like you said, whatever resonates with you, the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that. When you were writing your book, did you kind of get the sign like be totally transparent, authentic, and don't hold anything back kind of thing?
Absolutely. And that was the roughest part for me because with the first writing coach, she said to put stories in there, but it was still from that like traditional standard writing perspective of like, you put in the details to pull in the reader versus like just tell the story in the way that it happened and it wants to come through. That was my second writing coach. And so once I realized that that's where I was being taken and it was my own stories that needed to be told in that way, it was super scary. And I had a lot of resistance at first. I didn't want to share it in that way. But thankfully, because of my coach, like if I would write something, she's like, you're like, this is dead. Your soul isn't in it. There's literally been several times I would send her a chapter and she's like, this is just dead. You're not in it. You didn't let it flow. And she was right. And it was all because of the pain that was associated with just letting it come out, with telling the story, with doing, like you said. And once I did that, it was like, not only did I realize I was writing this book and like it was this spiritual book, all these things, but I realized that it was literally transforming me throughout the writing process. So it's like all these different things that happened that I had no clue would happen or even thought as a possibility just started to happen within inside of me and then all around me. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it was so cool when I was writing my story. I could resonate with what you're saying. I didn't have a writing coach, but I just was like, I heard the message. You're going to write this book. This is the title, and you're just going to start writing. And when you have gotten to self-love, the book will be finished.
Wow.
So I was starting this journey. I don't know how long this thing's going to take. And so I just started tracking. I started writing and I'd be like, oh, no, this story, this experience needs to go in the book. I know immediately. I was like, no, this has to go in the book. And I'd write it and put it in the book. And then like the next, and I'd think, okay, I'm there, right? And then the next thing would happen. And I'd go, no, I'm not, because this just happened. I documented my dating journey in there. Like it was so intense. And people were like, don't go in the haunted house again. No, not that guy. And then I date a guy. It's like, no, don't do it. There she goes again. And so it also kind of documents like how winding the journey is. It's not like you get a realization and then you suddenly healed and then you just live by that the rest of your life and you're good. It's not like that. It's like you take the step, right? And then like 5 other threads surface that you're like, oh, there's all this stuff to look at now, right?
Right. It's funny how it works. But you're right. It's not like you get healed and then you're on the mountaintop and then the rest of your life is like, it's not like that at all, that's another shocking part of the journey, I feel like, for me too. But no, I put it all in there. Like I shared some of the most darkest moments that I literally said I didn't want anybody to know, much less put it in a book so anybody could read it. But talking about, my involuntary commitment, the DUI, being broke and almost getting evicted and moving back in with my parents and all the different things that throughout my path that I did not want to share, but I was guided. This is important. This is how people relate. This is how they learn. And I just went with it for once in my life anyways. I went with it.
How did your family feel about you publishing all those stories about tender moments in your
So,
life?
well, I didn't tell them. They kind of just found out after the fact. So I've gotten some questions like from my dad. My mom shared with me that it was tough for her to hear. Was it, I think, the jail story because she didn't know that I had gone. My dad did, but she didn't know. So she said it was tough for her to hear that and some of the other challenges and stuff that I've gone through because she didn't know all the details and she feels bad because, she wasn't there to be able to support me and all these different things. But, I guess she feels like it happened the way it was supposed to, evidently. And I can get those things, but I feel like it's a hindsight, right? If I had shared this before the book was published and she got to that, because I feel like her reading the book also helped her process the things that she was reading versus if I had shared those things in real time, it probably wouldn't have gone gone that way, which is why I did not share, going back to how I was raised. But it's been a mixture. And then in the book, one of the self-love pillars, the first one is self-realization, which is about how we're all God, we just forgotten divinity and form. And coming from a strict background, some people didn't necessarily handle that so well and all those things. What do you mean? How can we be God? And all these different things. And then also in there, I talk about becoming an energy healer and quantum light worker and how that's very scary just because people will think you're the crazy weird lady. And especially coming from the science world and that background. And, so I've gotten that backlash and what does this mean? And do you still believe in God? And, all those questions. And before they really did I felt like it blocked me and kind of delayed me getting the book published on an energetic level anyways, because there was that subconscious fear and those thoughts I really had to work through, not really from strangers, but more so my family, from the judgment, the criticism, potential rejection. And now I'm just like, whatever. This is my truth. This is that truth. Like, I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm just here to kind of support those that are ready to say yes and choose the path. And it is what it is.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like a lot of us are being called up to that experience in many different ways right now and having a different understanding than what your family taught you. And then having that awakening to like a different way to perceive things and wanting to follow what's true in your heart and your mind and your body over what your family thinks or what your friends think or your work environment thinks or the culture thinks. And it's that following of that truth that you find inside of yourself that is the journey. That's the journey that you're here to embody your sovereignty as a conscious being and a conscious human. So like you're going to have to face those difficult things. And it really challenges and provokes those archaic parts of our brain, which have been very, very programmed ancestrally for thousands of years to not go against the tribe. Because if you do, you could be outcast and left to starve, and food for the wolves kind of thing versus like, but we're in this place now where it's imperative that we step forward and we have to embody our truth. There is no other way because otherwise you just won't want to be here. I mean, there's like you either walk the path and embody your truth or you'll get more and more and more depressed and not want to be here. That's kind of like what I see happening. And the people that are resisting it are coming to some brick walls, and that's intentional. And it's not a punishment. It's actually like an alarm clock. Yeah. Thanks to help you wake up to the fact that you've been living by somebody else's ideas or a whole matrix that is now dying, the dinosaurs, like it is patriarchy, dinosaur is croaking.
And trying its best to hang on.
It is stomping around, trying to hang on. And I think the pathway forward through all of these challenges we experience, whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, what misogyny, religious hate, you name it, poverty, every single one of these challenges is in some way, shape, or form calling you up to claim your sovereignty from what has been before. so that you can be in your truth.
Absolutely. And I feel like it ties back to settling ultimately because we have been, like you said, so conditioned and programmed that this is the way, like we're settling. And a lot of people, I feel like more people know it than they want to admit, anyways. Yes, there are truly some unconscious people who are literally just totally clueless, right? But I feel like there's definitely still a lot more people who know it. They just kind of pretend that they don't because, once you know it and you admit it, you can't unsee what you saw. So it's like you still kind of like pretend to be in that space. I don't know. It seems to be a shift happening where a lot more people, like you said, seem to be kind of waking up.
Yeah, and they're having challenges like the ones you and I have described with our family. It's just happening in a different way. It's like, I can't go to this church anymore because they support this hatred.
Right.
And I see it now and I can't unsee that. So I can't keep
Right.
going there. Or I can't talk to my parents about this because I disagree vehemently in my body. Like there's a real experience. It kind of feels like when you are on this path, you're pretty down in the dumps before you start walking it. Like you've kind of gotten to the end of the rope of your previous way of living. So much so that you're kind of, like you said, in a dark hole. And then this other kind of rope appears and you're like, well, I'm either going to just die down here or I need to climb that rope. Like there's no other way.
That's the way to put it. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you start
Mm-hmm.
climbing it. And the more you climb it, the more life sort of flips from upside down world to right side up world. And then you start walking because the whole world flipped. And now the darkness is like the underworld. And you're like walking on the real land finally. And you're like, wait a second, this was happening the whole time. What are you talking about? Oh my gosh. It's weird how it just subtly flips. And then you're talking to people that you used to understand the way they think, but like now they're in the upside down world.
Right.
And you're like trying to communicate through some like little pipe down there, like, hi, that's not the real world. It's up here. It's such a weird feeling. And they think you're absolutely nuts for a while. Like they think you've lost your mind. You're like, no, this is actually heaven on earth, like right here. I'm sorry you don't see it yet. I really can't wait for you to see it because once you do, this whole conflict thing we've been going through is going to be done in about 2 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. Once you remember who you are, this whole madness is over. And I think that's why obviously some people that are caught in it, it's because the entities are like, you can't have this one. Like they don't have much to feast on anymore, right?
Right.
Because every one of us that wakes up is like one more beautiful bright light to feast on, and then they have to go attack the next beautiful bright light and try to feed off of it. So it's like moths to a flame. So you don't want to be the last person standing. I just want to say this, not to put fear out there, but it's like, you really don't want to be the last one standing because then all the entities are going to be like on you. So
he's trying to get that last.
Don't be the last one. You'll regret that decision. Wake up sooner. Yeah. And everyone's going to do it in their own time too. So we can't force it. That's why I have my channel and I have my own podcast and, we can speak freely here, anything we want to say because it's on my channel. So if you happen across this interview and you're like, I didn't want to know that because like you said, once you know, you can't stop knowing, you've already known. It's like a little snare in the back of your head that won't stop,
That won't stop. And
it just keeps unraveling it. It's like a spider eating the web in your mind and it just keeps eating it until it's all gone. Like there's just once the transformation starts, it's going to complete.
It's complete. And it's why maybe you're thinking like, well, I don't know why me and my husband keeps arguing. It's like, and you feel like you need to do this or fix that or that. It could just be it's unraveling, right? You're transforming. I don't know why it seems like every time I'm at work, regardless of what happens, like I just feel so disconnected or like I'm just sick of this or whatever excuse you're coming up with to try to justify it or explain it away. Like that's not an accident. It's not you need a new manager or you need a vacation with your husband. It's deeper than that. And you can feel it, if it's continuing to, like you said, speak to you and you can feel it's like whether it's an expansive situation or it's like going back to sovereignty or if it's a constrictive situation that's causing you to hide, mask who you are, shrink. Like we know We all know. It's just a matter of, do you actually want to open yourself up enough to listen and receive it so that you can do something about it? And it really is a matter of, how uncomfortable are you with being in the uncomfortable? Because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. One more note on that, since you brought up the uncomfortable. I've been doing a lot of research in our medicine community. We're doing online training now. We've always been coaching groups and things like that, but now we're putting it in an online format. So we're fleshing it out.
Cool.
Like I'm putting more in there. And I've been researching at a deeper level, like the gene keys and the Venus sequence, because we're working on the Venus sequence right now. And when we go through the Venus sequence, we start off with your purpose. What's your purpose? What's your dharma? We go up through the attractor. How are you attracting relationships based on your dharma? Then we go into the IQ, which is the mental body that's 14 to 21, right? And so many people have not been initiated by elders in their IQ in their 14 to 21-year-old years. And this is reason why they are sheep following whatever somebody that an authority says. And also why they're so dogmatic about defending their opinions as if it's their identity, because they've actually fused their opinions with their identity, right? And so they built a fortress around their mind to like wall off any other information that could possibly come in that would dispute or refute their beliefs, which are their identity. And it's like, the medicine is to not know. If you want to actually heal your mind, you've got to put yourself through an initiatory process, like what Jasmyn's offering you, like what we offer in our medicine community. You've got to put yourself through an initiatory process so that you start questioning everything you think.
Yes.
And to be
Literally.
not knowing. That's the only way to break free of that mental cage that keeps you arguing with everybody. You have to question it because you didn't get the initiation. In a normal tribal situation, in an indigenous tribe situation, young people are tested by the elders to dissolve the mental construct, to dissolve identification with the mind head. But Western society said, I think, therefore I am. Whoops.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And so like became like a bunch of talking heads with bodies, but they're pretty much severed energetically.
Yeah. Right. That makes so much sense. So then it sounds like, because I was going to ask, well, how do you know if you have been initiated by an elder? I guess that I wasn't during that age.
You went through your own initiation with spirit. Like spirit said, hey, shook you a few times, gave you some big experiences. Those are initiatory experiences. And you had to start questioning everything, right? The relationship, the job, the path that you were walking. You had to start questioning it. And so it's easier to do it with elders than to do it all by yourself. You did it by yourself, really. You went direct to source and you started changing it. But I would say when you look back over your life, you might be able to spot some of those initiations that your parents did for you. Like we were just recording the course. And so one of the things that came up for me was that when I was a teenager, from 14 to about 18, I spent every single weekend with my parents on our little 24-foot sailboat in the middle of nowhere on the water. My parents forced me to go on the boat with them every weekend. I didn't have friends. I didn't go to the parties. I didn't get to do any of that stuff. I was on the boat with mom and dad reading books and playing cards at night. So retrospectively, that was some of the best times of my life. In the moment, I couldn't stand it. I was literally forced in a 20 by 8-foot space with my parents with no escape. You know what I'm saying? Like it forces you to harness that energy in a different way.
Right.
Like you can't just get dramatic in the middle of the boat.
And especially, yes, that size.
There's nowhere to go. Okay. There's the water, but how long can you tread water for?
Right.
Plus there was jellyfish in the water because it was in the Northeast. And yeah, so yeah, it was a really good initiation. And I actually just spoke to my mom about it. I told her, like, put that in the course. And she's like, oh, you finally realized that we were initiating you. And I was like, I had no idea that they even knew. But of course they did. So there's some things that your parents might have done, right? Like if you look back over it, you can see they might have tempered some of this egoic identification.
Yeah, no, I'm going to sit down and sit with that. But it's funny you say that because in my book, I talk about how all the things that we've all been through is initiation. But I have not thought about it or seen it through the lens that you just put me through. So it's so funny because it's in there in my book, but you just gave me like a whole new perspective and a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Of like what initiation truly actually means. Cause I think the first time I brought it into the book was when I was moving back in with my parents and I was like broke. I had the multiple degrees, but I was broke and in debt and the student loans and pregnant and on welfare and all the things. That was the first kind of initiation process that I went through. And I used the term, like I said, I just let what flowed through me wanted to. And it's so funny because this is a full circle moment for me because you just taught something to me that's in my book, if that makes sense.
I'm not surprised we're learning the same lessons. I mean, I feel like it's the lessons that everybody needs to learn right now. It's just kind of like, who do you want to learn it from? That's all it is.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. So I know that you're also offering a free chapter from your book. Do you want to tell us more about that chapter and like what's in it?
Yeah. So what we just talked about is so
Oh,
funny. Actually, in that my initiation is how we fell out of love with ourselves in the first place. That's the name of the chapter. How we fell out of love with ourselves. And it talks about literally what I just explained. It shares that story and how I got to this space of being essentially broke, busted, and disgusted. Like there has to be more to life than this. I know that God didn't put us here to suffer, and especially coming from this super religious background, I just knew that even though it was considered a sin and blasphemous and you're going to have all these things to ask these questions, I just knew, like you said, you have to literally get comfortable with questioning every single thing. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Every thought that you thought was you, that you have now associated with like your personality or this is just who I am. Is it really? You literally have to question everything. And this chapter talks about how we got to this space that a lot of us didn't even know that we were even in. And then the foundation of it all. And it literally changed the way I look at everything that I've gone through because it's all been a part of the plan and the journey of going from forgetting to remembering and coming home to yourself.
I
So
love
it's
that.
very interesting. Yeah.
And that's free. So that's we're going to put the link in the show notes. So you can go down to the link and grab that free book chapter from
Yeah.
Jasmyn. And it
Yeah.
sounds like just so powerful. I know that you're gonna talk about all these things we've been talking about in the book, and then you do a lot of work with helping high achieving people, right? You did all the things, you went after it, you thought that you were gonna get some feeling of inner delight, maybe joy, and it's not there. So don't settle for less than that. Don't settle for like just the next vacation or just the next piece of jewelry,
Raise. Yeah.
whatever. So what? You can buy a bunch of stuff. It doesn't mean anything. You can't take it with you. All you can take with
Right.
you is your soul and yourself and
Right.
your lesson.
Right. Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. I knew it was going to be a great conversation, Jasmyn. And thanks for reaching out to me initially, too. That was great.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for meeting with me and, inviting me. It's been so much fun. I told you when we met that we were soul sisters. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel it. So, you guys, please like, subscribe to the podcast and also to Jasmyn's stuff and follow her. Go get the free chapter from the book. And then you can also go up on, I think, Amazon. Yeah, Amazon. And you can order it just directly, Falling Madly in Self-Love. And it's Jasmyn Quianna. And so check that out. Get her book. Leave a nice review. Reviews help it, you guys. Like, leave reviews, please. Leave reviews for the podcast. Leave reviews for her book. It really helps us when there's reviews because the search engines like that. And then more people can find it.
Yeah.
So is there any last thing you want to share before we wrap up the call?
I would say that you were born for more than if you're listening to this and you feel even an inkling of like, are they talking about me? Yes, we're talking about you, or else you wouldn't have even had the thought and you wouldn't even be listening. So if you even feel like that inkling, like I said, you were born for more than this. You were created for more than this. And it is your God-given divine birthright to live and have more than just the settling version of life. Life was meant to feel just as magical as it looks on the outside. So don't settle. Life is too short and too precious. Yes, we have multiple lives, but each life is just as super special and important as the last one. And we want to take advantage of all of them. ultimately, it's still like if we don't complete a phase in this cycle, we're going to repeat it again. Do you want to repeat it again in another life? That's something that used to always get to me. I'm like, I don't like repeating it now. I definitely don't want to come back and repeat the same again. So don't settle. Don't settle. It's not worth it. And on top of that, the magic that you get to experience on the other side, that is definitely worth it.
It sure is. A whole new life. Did I ever think I was going to be a medicine woman? I had no clue about that. I knew I liked art, but that's it. I never knew. I didn't even know what a shaman was. And then all of a sudden I found some and I was like, these are amazing people. I like these people. I want to do what they do. So yeah, I had no clue this is going to be my life, and it's pretty magical. So your life is going to be magical too the moment you decide to stop settling and stop keeping your eyes closed.
Yes, open your eyes.
Open your eyes as big as you can and let it all in. And you'll experience the magic that Jasmyn and I have been experiencing. And the magic includes the mud, because without the mud, there ain't no lotus.
Ain't none. Yep.
That's why you have a good friend like Jasmyn to guide you through it, because some of it is rough, but it's worth the journey. And it would have been more rough if you stayed. So either way, it's going to be rough. So how do you want to do it? I say go for it.
Right.
Take the journey.
Right.
All right. So thanks for being on the show. You guys know I'm about to give you kisses. Please like, subscribe, share this episode out with anybody that you think could use it today, and especially Jasmyn's message. And then here come your kisses. You can join me, Jasmyn, if you want to give some Reiki kisses. Here they come, everybody. Thanks for staying and listening to the very, very end. Love you guys so much, and we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, Soul Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.